Also, I'm not picky on color palettes. If all you have is red, yellow, blue, and white, you'll be fine. That's completely fine. If you have like a cad red, a cad yellow, and like a phthalo blue and some white, that's pretty much all you need. If you have other colors like any greens or any other yellows or any other blues, you are more than welcome to use those as well. I have a very limited color palette today because I didn't know what other colors people were going to have, so I wanted to keep it very simple.
What about our brush sizes? What should we have on hand?
Small, medium, large, really. That's really, okay. You shouldn't need anything, depending on the size of your canvas. I have, this is like maybe a 1-inch brush, and then I have a 1/2 inch, and then maybe like 2 small ones. That should be fine. Small, medium, large. That's really all you're gonna need.
All right.
And it shouldn't matter if it's a round brush, a filbert, a flathead, anything is really gonna do fine.
And everybody has a palette ready to roll pretty much?
What I might suggest is that if you are using like paper plates, maybe have an extra paper plate with you just in case.
I went online and it said like tempered glass was really good. So I found one of my old things from the kitchen.
Oh, hey, that works too. Well, what's great about those is you can peel the paint off when you're done. So that's really nice. I use like old Chinese takeout container things, and sometimes I cover them with foil. So that's the same thing.
I'll just show everybody. I bought this little guy. I don't know if you can see. Oh, because I have it.
You have become one with your background. Ooh.
Yeah, this is a little like serving tray from, or I think it's like a plate for the summer.
Yeah.
It's up at a Christmas tree shop, but I thought, oh, that'd make a nice palette.
You're right. That is again something that you can easily scrape off. That's good. Yeah, right. That works well.
All right. Well, it is 6 o'clock, so I would say let's go ahead and get started then with our bridge.
Okay. Well, I welcomed everybody, but I'm going to do it again. My name is Cheryl. If you have not met me before, if you have any questions or you need me to go back or you need me to slow down, so I've been told I talk very quickly, totally fine. Just throw a chat up and Lynn will let me know because I'll probably be painting. So Lynn, right, you just let me know. Okay, yep, perfect.
I will jump in with that.
Awesome. Okay.
What do you mean throw a chat up? I don't know what that means.
On the bottom of your screen, there are a couple, there's a couple different things, and one of them says chat.
I see a little blue circle with a little white thing in the middle. Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's a little white. If you click on that on your right hand of your screen, it will come up with a place if you want to put in a question. I just wrote in hello.
That took me out of Zoom. Not good.
All right, well, we still see you, so it must be underneath something else.
Are you using a phone or are you using a tablet?
Laptop.
Laptop. Oh, okay, well then you should be able to see it.
I got your back.
Okay.
I hit the Zoom button again. It took me right out. I won't hit that blue thing again.
Well, right now we have a small group, so we, I don't know that we have to really even mute everybody unless we get feedback. You can jump in with a question. All right. Nobody's outside. Sometimes if they're outside, we get feedback. But if everybody's inside, we should be good. Although I might mute myself because I do have a dog that likes to bark. So. All right, so, yep. Any more questions before we get started? Okay.
I do want to make sure if everyone does have the image that we're painting today, just so you have something that you do have what it is going to look like. Well, what we're going to be inspired by, I should say. What was behind Lynn's head. All right, I want you to understand, one, that the one actually behind Lynn's head is actually somebody who has been inspired by Claude Monet, okay? So that's wonderful that we can take this and don't feel like you have to have it perfect, like the colors have to match. This is your painting, and I want in the end for you to enjoy the painting and not trying to be so tight with yourself that you feel like it has to look like something that Mr. Monet would make, because that's just crazy. He painted for a really long time, and we don't have to put that kind of pressure on ourselves, okay? So just relax and have a good time with this, okay? So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna sketch everything out where we want things to go. So we're just gonna be blocking in main shapes with our pencil. All right, so if everybody wants to grab their pencil. So obviously the main focus of this painting is the bridge. And it happens to be that this bridge looks pretty darn symmetrical from side to side, from one side of the painting to the other side. So we're going to do the best that we can to make sure that our bridge has that same look. So if you don't have a ruler, don't worry about it. You don't need a ruler for this. What I did is I actually took the length of my finger to my thumb, like made an L, and I kind of put it at the top of my canvas like this, and on the side of my canvas I made a little hash mark. Right, that's where this part begins, and then I did the same for the other side, so I had equal sides. So I had two hash marks, one on this side, one on the other side. About a finger down. So then I just took my finger, not the whole L shape, but just my finger. It's about 2 more inches down. I'm going to make the bottom hash. So I have a top hash and a bottom hash mark. One here, and the same on the other side. So you should have 4 hash marks. I know it might be kind of hard to see my pencil lines. I'm going to see if I can't zoom in that a little. It's here, and there's one here. You can probably see them better over here, I think. Okay. All you're going to do is between these 2 hash marks, right in the middle, just find what you think is the middle and make your 3rd hash mark. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hash marks. So here's when you get to start to eyeball it a little bit. We want to sort of find the center of our canvas. If your canvas is going like this, obviously, you know, it would be a little different, but just do the best you can to eyeball the center of your canvas and make another mark where the center of your canvas is. Okay. So now we're going to start making the bow. You don't want to just try to go over because we want it to all to be about the same size. So here's the easiest thing to do. you have this mark of where your finger is, right? And this looks like mine's about maybe 3 inches down from the top of my canvas. I'm going to go to the center of my canvas, and instead of coming 3 inches down to be equal to this hash mark, I'm going to come 2 inches down and make another hash mark. We're basically plotting the points where we want everything to intersect. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay? And now we get to make the bow. What you're going to do is start with the center line here, the center point, and you're going to curve down to this point over here. So just take that and do a slight curve so you meet that other point. And then you can do the same for the other side. Sometimes I like to start with the curve so I can keep going and bring that down to the other side. There we go. The beautiful thing is, all you have to be happy with is your first line. Because once you have that first line, all you're going to do is come down about 1 inch and just kind of mock the same arc that you did. So you're basically just coming down a little bit and mocking the center line. So this line and this line look the same, they're just 1 inch apart. And you do the same with the third line. Just mock the middle line here. And that should give you a pretty good bridge pattern. So this painting doesn't have a lot of shapes to it, right? There's not like, if anybody joined me for the poppy, it was like, okay, there's a poppy here and there's a poppy here. We made all the different shapes. This one is a little freer. So the main things that we're going to focus on are where the horizon line is and maybe where some of the lily pads are sitting and a few of the big bushes. Other than that, you really don't have to map anything out too much. So to find the horizon line is pretty much where your 2 points are at the bottom of your bridge. So all you have to do is kind of take these 2 points here on the bottom and draw a line straight across. It doesn't have to be a perfect line. It can wobble a bit because honestly, it's probably going to be covered with paint. Make it a little darker so everyone can see. You can kind of see, if you look at the image, you can kind of see where that horizon line lies, right? So right here, and then you've got that nice bush right in the middle there. You have that kind of feathery bush in the middle. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark out where that bush goes, how high that bush goes. And I think there's another one a little bit farther down here. I'm just going to mark where that guy goes. And then there's a bush to the left, that nice dark blue one here. Just going to mark where that guy goes, right there. And then the biggest one is where you see the water reflection. So it kind of goes lilies, lilies, water. Lilies, 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 right? So we want to mark where that water section is. So all I'm going to do is kind of right near this bush, I'm going to draw a line, goes up a little bit, kind of this triangular, right? Because this is then all lilies, the water reflection line, and this is a bunch of lilies down here. If I can make any of this a little darker for everyone. I wish pencil showed up better on here. It's hard to see, but if you look at the image, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. It looks like a lot of flowers in this area. And then you have this area where it looks like just green and yellow slashes coming down like this. There's a little bit darker area, more slashes. That's the water reflection area, and then all the lilies that are down here. Okay? And I think that's where we're going to stop with our pencil. I think that's really all we need, right? Very simple map for this one. So put the pencil away. What I'm going to do now is maybe a little different than what we've done in the past. And I'm going to put down a kind of a wash at the top and a wash at the bottom. And I'm going to show you how to do this. Now, the reason why we want to do this is because if you look at this picture, it is so loaded with color and a lot of paint. And if we put a wash down, that will hide a lot of our canvas marks, so you won't see bright white sticking through when you're finished with your painting. And perhaps you won't have to use as much paint. So this, in the end, may save you all of that paint on paint on paint on paint, okay? So because we have a lot of dark blues at the top, we're gonna do from the horizon line up a bluish wash, and from the horizon line down, more of a green wash. So this is what I mean by wash. All I'm doing is I'm taking my blue, I'm gonna use my cobalt blue. If you have a phthalo blue, that's fine. I'm just gonna use this little bit lighter blue. I'm gonna put some on my large paintbrush. And I wanna add water to this. Now, normally you'll hear me say, hey, do not add water to your paint. Bad idea. But because we're making a wash, totally fine. So I'm gonna make a nice watery paint. And because we don't have a lot of paint on here and it's nice and dry, this should dry on the canvas pretty quick. And all I'm gonna do is, because it's watery, I can go right over my pencil lines and still see where my map is. And this doesn't have to be perfect. Notice how I'm just kind of slapping it on, right? We don't have to do this part smooth. This can just be kind of thrown on there. As long as you can see your pencil lines through it, you're gold, okay? Think of it as like a watercolor. If you've ever done watercolor before, think of it as putting down watercolor. This is what they call in painting an underpainting. And like I said, I don't normally have people do this, but for this painting, it really will help make a difference for you. Again, don't worry if the color is even, we're just covering the white. When you finish this, you're gonna do the same thing for the bottom, but you're gonna do it in a green tone. So I'm just gonna keep this watery blue that I have, and I'm gonna add some yellow to it. That's all. I can just reuse this blue that I've made. I'm gonna add yellow, and then I'm just gonna add some water to it. So I can make a nice washy green paint. See? Magical. And same thing, just wash this whole paint on the bottom half. Also, if you run out of paint, don't add more paint to this, add more water, okay? There's no sense in when you're covering to waste paint on the background, on the wash part. Just add a little bit more water to your paint to spread it out. And then voila, you're done. It's a masterpiece. So the paint on this dries pretty fast. The wash will dry pretty fast. Like my blue is pretty dry. I mean, it's a little wet, but it's okay to work with it if it's a little wet. We're gonna start with blue because we did that first. So while everyone is finishing up with the wash, I'm gonna talk really quickly about color, just really fast. I even have a really cool color wheel, which I'm very proud of. So the reason why I brought the color wheel is because everyone knows that yellow and blue make green, right? When we're going to be doing painting, I'm going to be saying things like we're going to make a dark, medium, and a light blue. So if you do not have dark and medium blue colors, you can very easily make dark colors by adding the complementary color. So for example, if I wanted to make a dark green, I would mix my green, and then to make it darker, I would add a little red to it. So by adding red to my green, that'll create a dark green. Oh, over here, a dark green. Okay, by adding orange to blue, I can create a dark blue. So it's as simple as that, really. If you don't add a lot of the red, right, you'll have a medium tone. If you add a lot more red, you're going to have a darker green, okay? So it depends on how much you add. Just like when you add white to a color, when you add a lot of white to a color, it brightens it up a lot more, okay? So, you know, also keep in mind with this, when we're doing greens especially, you can lighten and brighten the green by using yellow as well. Okay, so yellow will also give you a nice lift to the color. I will try to keep this here. If it falls, I apologize. I'll try to be really careful. So you can see my color wheel. So if you forget, you know, add the contrasting color. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna start at the top here. Just so everyone knows, because the bridge is in the foreground, that's the focus point, that's probably going to be the last thing that we do, okay? If you want to make sure that you don't lose where your bridge is, you can take a smaller paintbrush and a little bit of white paint and follow your lines just so you don't lose all of that hard work that you just did drawing the bridge. Just so you always know where that is. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect because we're just marking where our pencil lines are. So. Okay. So now in the back, there's this really beautiful dark blue. There's a lot of green in the back, but we're going to start with our blues. So to make a nice dark blue, I'm going to take my phthalo right here. I'm going to add just a hint of red and just a hint of yellow. So I'm going to take some blue. I'm just going to dip that in for a little bit of red. And same thing, a little bit of yellow. Because red and yellow make orange. Mix that together, creating a nice dark blue. Maybe I'll make it a little darker. There we go. Beautiful. Once you have a dark blue that you love, and it doesn't have to be as dark as mine, you can have just a straight up blue if you want. Once you have your dark blue, take a look at the photo, and in the middle here, there's this beautiful dark area, which is far back. So we're gonna create depth with our dark blue. So just gonna take this, I'm gonna slap that blue right in there. And it's okay if I go over my bridge lines a little bit. As long as I remember where my bridge is, it's not a big deal. I think there's a little more over here. Maybe some on the side. You notice I'm really not being very careful. I'm just kind of taking my paintbrush and I'm just kind of going, I think there's blue here, right? I'm not making an exact shape. If you look here, most of my shape is in the middle. And then I've got maybe a dark shadow here, a dark shadow here. All I'm doing is going to be creating depth. This blue area is going to be the farthest away from you. Okay, that's why it's so dark. It's way back in the pond, all those trees that are in way back there. I think there's a little bit like right here. No, we got a little that's in there. I'll put some more over here. Look at this. Yeah. Again, don't worry about my shape, okay? Just worry about there's blue in the middle, and here. Come over a little bit, more blue. Come over a little bit more blue, right? With my dirty brush, don't put it in the water. Keep it nice and dirty. I'm just going to add a little bit of white to my blue to create a medium blue. So now I have a dark blue and a medium blue, just with a little bit of white. What I want to do, because Monet was brilliant at this, he could create light with just a few colors. So what made it so great is that he was careful not to blend everything in really well. He tried to show that color and brush marks were more organic. So when you're adding this medium color, try not to be so specific about where it goes. All I'm doing is going to dot some of this medium color on the side. I make that a little. And I don't have to be specific about it. I want there to be dark color mixed in with it, which is why I'm using a dirty brush. I want to see the light that's being created. No more. If you look at your image, wherever you feel that you see some of this bluish color, just go ahead and throw it in there. It does not have to be exactly where Monet put it. If you see some, throw it in there. It's not going to hurt it. It'll just make the painting more yours. So a lot of this top area here is going to be done the same way. We put our blues in. There's not a whole lot more blue in the top. That's pretty much the blues that we see, and the rest of it's very greens and yellows, right? So you're going to do the same thing with your greens. We're going to create a dark green, a medium, and a medium green, and we're going to layer those in just like we did the blues, okay? So I don't even know if I'm going to wash my brush. I think I'm just going to make a dark green with my brush, because why not? I'll just keep the blue on there. It'll just add to it. And I'm just going to make a green over to the side here. If your green looks too blue, add more yellow to it. And again, if you want to make your green darker, throw in a little red. Another easy trick, if you have brown, you can always take your green, and to make it darker, you can add a little brown to your green as well. That also does help. So I'm just going to take my dark green, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to block in, smack this green in wherever I see dark green. There's a lot of green in this background, so we're going to be putting in a lot of dark green. but I want to dab it in because I want that texture. I want all that beautiful paint marks. So I want to dab that green color in. If you notice, I actually went on top of some of my dark blue too. All I'm doing is with that dark green, I'm just throwing this everywhere. Going plop, 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 plop. Everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Going over my blue color too. So if you take this and you just blob, 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 you won't overmix. You'll just get this nice transition of color. Ooh, I made that way too dark. There we go. Now, it looks like I kind of went a little crazy with my dark green, but that's okay because I'm going to add medium green right in there as well. And to make my medium green, I can add more yellow or a little bit of white to my green. I think I'm going to add yellow. If you notice what I'm doing, I'm really kind of just filling in the light blue areas. So I went over with a lot of dark green, and now with my medium green, wherever I have leftover like areas that look really blue still, I'm just going to take that and cover that with my medium green. What I don't want you to be hung up on right now is the fact that it just looks like color blobs, okay? Don't get hung up on that. Paintings always have to have layers, and I want you to keep that in mind. So when you're making a painting, you put down one layer, you add it up, you build it up, you build it up, each time getting more and more detailed, okay? So no, this is not the finished look at the top. All right, this is just blobbing in where the darks and the mediums go. The bottom portion has a lot of texture, but we're gonna paint it a little bit different. We did dub, 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 dub at the top. For the bottom portion, we can make it a little smoother because the texture on top, we want the lily pads to really stick out, the water lilies. So this we're gonna make a little smoother. The water lilies will be the texture, okay? Because of that, I'm going to use a little bit more of a flat brush for this. If you don't have a flat brush, it's fine. Any brush will do. But this is, I'm going to use this is about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch brush. And for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the water area and the lily pad area with some nice colors, okay? So first, let's start with our darker blues. So again, I'm going to make a dark blue. Maybe not as dark as what I made up at the top here. Maybe I'll add a little white to this so it's not as dark. I'm going to really put a lot of paint on my brush. I'm going to go in the middle portion where the reflection pool is here. And this, I want to be a little smoother. I'm moving my brush back and forth, kind of like a Z motion. And I'm using the tip of my brush, not the flat end. I'm using the tip just so it smooths out. And what that does is it kind of creates this water look too when you do that. If you use this kind of back and forth Z motion, you pick up kind of a water feel. I think there's a little blue up at the top here too. I'm gonna put a little blue right on the horizon line as well. Just right on that horizon line, just push some blue in there. I mean, it doesn't really matter because we're not actually at this, so we can pretend that this looks however we want it to look. This is our lily pad. This is our lily pond. I keep saying lily pad, lily pond. So maybe I have some reflection coming out here too. But you can see the difference in the texture right away, the smooth water versus the tree. You're starting to see the difference here. Again, if you keep going, like I'm not having a lot, after I run out of paint, I'm still really pushing my brush until all that paint comes off of it, because that's just going to create more color spread on the canvas. So don't be afraid to just, instead of keep reloading, really wear that paint out and pull that paint where you want it to go. And of course, after blue comes green. There's a lot of blue and green in this picture. You're gonna get really good at mixing blues and greens. So I'm just gonna make kind of a medium green here. I don't want to go too dark with this green down here. This is a lot, if you look at this, these greens are a lot lighter down at the bottom. So I'm using more of this kind of springy green here. And then I'm just going to take this right in between And also, again, notice how when I'm going this back and forth motion, I'm also going over my blue a little bit. I don't want to just go, there's blue, here's the green. You want to mix the blue and the green into each other a little bit. Don't try to be too careful. Just move your brush, move your brush. So the wonderful thing, once you have your dot, dot, dot at the top and your smooth at the bottom, we can pretty much call this a baked cake, okay? Meaning our foundation is good. We are done with the foundation. We can start decorating our cake. It's being cooled down, it's all ready to go, right? So a lot of what I'm going to be doing is how I see the painting, okay? How I see it. I'm going to show you where the trees drop down and how the brushes look like that and how the bushes look over here. But what I want you to do is I want you to see your color. So all the while you can look at how I'm doing it to show you the technique. But if you see a bushier place, go ahead and throw your bush in there, okay? You don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing on my canvas, okay? Perfect. That's excellent, Sandra. And you can actually kind of see it start to come together. No, it is right now, right? So when you take a cake out of the oven, it still looks like a cake, right? You got to put the good stuff on, the frosting, and right? So it looks good because I can see in yours a definite tree area and water area, and that's perfect. So there's a lot of shaggy area in this painting. So my suggestion to you is when you're doing the dotting area, do the dots. When you're doing the shaggy area, do the shaggy. Because shaggy area isn't just here with the willow trees, the bushes down here have a lot of that whoop whoop to them as well. And you'll have that same color pretty much on your brush. So you might as well do all of that together. So it's not like we're just focusing on this section only. You want to look at your painting as a whole. So if we're doing a technique up here and it works for a bush down at the bottom, we're gonna do it, okay? So for my little shaggier areas, I'm gonna use my medium-sized brush, okay? This one's a round brush. If you don't have a round brush, something like this works fine, like this flathead brush, as long as you're using the tip, that works fine. Okay, you would just be painting on the tip of it like this, rather than flat like this. Now, when I'm doing these kind of paintings, I like to use my dirty palette because I like picking up old color underneath. I feel like it kind of adds to it, and it makes my life a little easier so I don't have to keep mixing the color. I have a lot of my palette already here, so I'm just going to use this same palette until I feel like I can't use this anymore. What I want to do now is I want to start making the highlight colors on top. So these are very light, so we have to use a little bit of white. So I'm actually going to start with white, and then I'm going to add some yellow and a little bit of blue. It's going to seem very light, okay? You want it pretty light because once we put it on here that it's so dark, we want to make sure it sticks out. So it is perfectly fine. I don't know if you can see how light that is, but that's a really, really light color, okay? So I'm going to take this nice light color, and I'm just going to come down with my brush. I'm not going to dot anymore. I'm going to bring a lot of this down. Actually, I'm going to use this. I think this might work a little bit better. I'm going to use my flathead. There we go. That works much better. Doing very fast strokes. Very, very fast. Letting the color blob up in some areas. Sorry about my dog, if you can hear him in the background. Something is not making him very happy. It's okay to go over your bridge a little bit as well, as long as you know where the bridge line is. Don't worry about going over that. In fact, I'm kind of going through it a little bit, which is fine. Again, as long as I know where my lines are. I'll take this down. I'm even going to go down a little bit into the water, as this is a willow tree that's falling over. So I can even go over my horizon line a little bit. Just notice my paintbrush, my stroke is always going down. I'm always moving in the direction that I want the willow tree to be falling. So I'm moving my brush down always. And then don't be afraid to kind of mix up the color a little bit. If you run out of that first color, make a new color. Now I'm going to use this kind of like limeish color right on top. I want you to just have fun with the colors. Okay, just have fun. Now I'm using kind of a bluish green medium color, just because. We're doing that same motion. Always coming down. And there's a lot of areas that use this kind of down, down, down motion. So the difference being, this tree is going down because the branches are falling down. The bushes, on the other hand, are moving up. So what you want to do instead then is move your brush up in an upward motion. So the bush is over here. Oh, I need more white there. That is not light enough. Move more in an upward motion. It's hard to see that. That's over there. Let's scoot this over here so I can see that a little better. Maybe I can lift it up here. Lift this up so you guys can see the bottom there. I don't know if that helps. I think my name is in the way. I'll do the bush over here so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going from the side of the canvas and I'm moving up, 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 up. Just make sure you can actually see your pieces. So I know we put a lot of color here and here. The reason why I'm having you do really, really light colors, adding a lot of white, I want you to be able to see your bushes. Okay, if you can't see your bush, add a little bit more white because we can always add yellows and different colors on top of it afterward. But I want you to be able to see those bushes really well. This guy in the middle, on the sides. I mean, these little bushy things are everywhere. So I'm just kind of making these little wispy guys everywhere. And don't worry if they look really thick at first, because we can always thin them out later. We can always thin them out with a little paintbrush when we add the highlights. I'm not going to worry too much about the highlights on my little frilly bushes yet. We're going to let that dry, and then we're going to do the highlights. After that, I want to let these dry, and then we'll add the little twigs and sticks to really make those sharp come out. What I want to focus now on is more of the daubs, right? The dot painting. Like what we were doing in the beginning, but this time we're going to be adding more of the highlights. Okay? So this is the same thing, the dot that we did in the beginning, but we're going to be using a lighter color now, okay? Where the sunlight is hitting the trees here. So we have the sunlight hitting here, and then we're going to have the sunlight in these bushy trees here. So for this, I'm going to make a really nice light green. Nice light green. And see how that just pops right off. Dot, 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 where the light is hitting those trees. Dot, dot, dot. And if you notice, the light actually hits the trees on, usually it's on the sides here. You don't want to do anything too much in the blue here, right? Maybe a few here and there. But the blue is the really dark area. So you want all the light area to pop out more. So I would leave most of the blue and bring your dot dots down. You can use that dot dot on here too, right? So a lot of this, take that same color. These are just not going to be as big of dots. I'm going to sit right on the top of my dark blue area, and I'm going to put some dots on the water as well to start building up the foliage that lives on my water. You'll notice as we're painting this, there's really no like one formula, okay? It's all about where you see the texture and the color. So that's why I say have fun with it, because there is no way that yours is going to look like mine. It's just not going to happen, all right? Your colors are going to look different. Where you put your highlights is going to look a little different. But as long as you see that you're creating texture, and usually the highlight goes just above a dark color, right? If there's a dark color, usually you have that highlight right above there. So if you have a darker color, you can put a lighter color right on the line above it, and that will really create a lot of depth too, okay? Okay. So all I'm doing is I'm progressively adding lighter and lighter color here, building it up. Lighter greens, lighter yellows, lighter whites, dotting textures, using that dot, dot, dot right on top of the water. Water also has some really beautiful light blues in it as well. You can throw in some light blues. The color palette of this painting is pretty much dark green, light green, medium green, dark blue, light blue, medium blue. So as long as you're using blue and green, you can't go wrong. 5,000 different shades of blue and green. That's why you shouldn't get caught up on, oh my goodness, I ran out of that color. How am I going to make that again? Don't worry about that. Still doing the dots on the pond to create all that beautiful texture with the different colors. And you could dot this all day. The problem is, I don't know if we have all day. You will have all day. So your painting does not have to be 100% fully textured the way you want it by 7:30, okay? Please keep that in mind. What's wonderful about this is that you can keep adding. I just wanted to show you the different techniques for that. There's a few other techniques that you can use for the water. You can take that flat brush like we did before, and there's some areas of water that look like they're pulled down a little bit. You can always take like a light yellow or whatever, light green, and pull down a little bit to get some reflections. I'm being very, very light with my brush, like very, very light pulling down, very light. Is all that's going to do, and I'm just kind of bringing this down from my dots, and if I just pull this right down, it makes a little bit of a reflection. But I'm being very light, barely touching the canvas. As long as you kind of get this zigzaggy look and it doesn't look like line, then you're doing it correctly. If you keep a flat brush and you're very, very light with it, you really can't go wrong with this technique here. And you should be able to see, it's almost like there's not a lot of paint on the brush. So it'll look like there's not a whole lot of paint on the brush. You get that really nice reflection look. Where would we be without the actual lilies? Okay, pure white on a brush. I just want to take my brush with that white and mark where I want my lily flowers to live with a little bit of white. That's where I want to have, wherever I want to put my little lily flowers. Remember, as we go farther in the back, the little areas will be smaller, right? As we move farther back in space, things look smaller. So your little white areas are going to be a little smaller than up front. And I don't want to hurry through this, and I apologize, but I want to make sure I can get most of the details for the paintings so you have enough that you feel confident that you can do this on your own, okay? That's a lot of lilies. Yeah, a little white up here. I'll add a little bit more highlight. All right. Once you have that put in, we can focus on the bridge, because after we get the bridge in, all we're doing are the final little details. Sticks on the trees, on the bushes, putting the pink flowers in the water, that really fun stuff, right? Not that this whole thing isn't fun. I could probably just paint this all day. But once you have that, we really can, and this is nice and dry, we can go ahead and put that bridge in. When you're doing the bridge, it's best to start with a white, okay? I'm using kind of a small flathead brush. I'm gonna do white, and maybe I'll add just a hint of blue, just to give it a little bit of tint to it. So I'm gonna take a nice light blue, and I'm gonna be really careful and know where my lines are and start really carefully painting in right on top of these lines. Now the trick to this, and the reason I'm using this brush, is because I can use this brush as a guide as to how thick my line should be. You kind of want your lines to be the same thickness all the way to the other side. Monet looks easy to paint. He's a very complex painter. It looks easy. It's just about how much color and depth you add. Another reason why we add a lot of white when we're doing the bridge is because that white will cover up any other paint that we might have used for the background. White is really good at doing that for you. So that bridge really will look like it is in front of all that beautiful foliage. Once you have these lines painted, just pay attention to where the crossbars come down. So the easiest one is probably one closest to the center. You're just going to come straight down. Make that one crossbar. And then go over a little bit. There's a smaller crossbar here. And then there's a nice big one, not too far from that, right there. And then a smaller one here. And a nice big one right here. And then a smaller one. And then a big one. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 crossbars. The thinner ones are the ones that are in the back a little bit. They're farther in the back. Now you're going to want to make the bottom line a little bit darker and thicker than the other 2 bridge lines. So the top 2 bridge lines, they're pretty good width. The bottom bridge line, we want a little bit darker because it's got the shadow underneath it, and a little thicker. So I'm going to make a nice dark blue. Maybe I'll add a bluish green color. And I'm just going to come right on the bottom with this dark blue, right on top of that white line.
Oh, that's what it was, white.
And what's wonderful with that same dark blue, you can add the different shadows that you see on the bridge. So all I'm doing is I'm just taking this, and if it looks like there's a little shadow area that I see in the picture, I'm just going to add a little of that blue to the shadow, to add a little bit of shadow. You don't have to be super specific about this, the shadow things, as long as you put some so it doesn't just look like white lines, you know. So I just put a little here, a little on the edge here, a little on this bar. Just the little shadows. Now, in the last few minutes, I'm just going to show you like one little bush and how to make some of these bushes. If you're looking at this and you're looking like, oh, my bushes, they look a little too, they don't have a whole lot of dimension to them, okay? What you want to do is you want to take a thinner brush, okay? And a really nice light yellow color. Because what you're going to do is you're really going to create very thin lines now that can go right on top of your thicker lines. So the best way to get a really thin brush is once you load up the paint, circle that, twirl that into the paint, and it'll make a really nice fine tip on your brush. And you can use that to create all the little fine twigs. And I swear you could probably spend all day making thousands of these little twigs. But what that does, it's going to create a little bit more shape and dimension to your bushes. If they're looking a little flat, that's a really easy way to just give them a little bit more shape. You just want to make sure you put a lighter color on top. So what I also did, another thing that you can do, is I put some white down, and then right on top of the white, I put yellow, and that, boom, pops it right out. So here, I'll show you one more time. I'm going to take my white. Let me do it on here. I'll do it up here. I'm just going to bring some of this white down, and it looks really bright. But then as soon as I put this yellow right on top of it, it dulls that white down, and it creates a beautiful highlight. Because yellow is one of those colors that if you use it, it kind of sucks into the rest of the color. So if you're trying to use a lot of yellow and your yellow's not popping out, put white down first and then yellow on top of it. And you really should be able to get that yellow to pop right out. And of course, flowers. Yay! Red and white. So we're going to have two different colors of pink. You're going to want your darker pink and then a light pink. You're going to put your dark pink down first. So I'm just going to do, you can see that's my darker pink right there. Right there. Just going to take that same little brush that I was using and right on top of my white area, just going to throw some pink. I still want that white to show, right? But I just want to put like little dots of my pink color. And it doesn't have to be on every white area because maybe not every lily flower is full bloomed yet, so you don't have to have pink on everything. And then you're going to make a nice light pink. And that's just going to sit a little bit on top of that dark. just to give a little more depth. All I'm doing is I have some dark pink area. I'm just taking my light pink and I'm kind of smushing it right on top of it or right next to it. And these are small dots. These are not the giant dots from before, because these are really fragile flowers. It's really just little things. So the last little bit is just you really looking at Monet's picture and really adding the little tiny details to your image that are going to make it pop. And that's like the little lines. You have a lot of big fat lines. Now you can add some of the highlighty light lines, the little things, the little sticks and stuff. They're going to really bring out a nice texture. And that's all I'm doing. If I feel like I don't have enough light, dark area, maybe I need more dark area, I'm just going back in and I'm adding a little dark color to some bushes too. All that does is create a little bit more contrast. In the end, the only one that needs to be happy with your painting is you. All I'm doing now is I'm just adding more highlight. I like big contrast. So I have my really dark darks, and now what I'm doing is I'm adding just straight up bright yellow. I'm just taking yellow and I'm just throwing yellow on top of where I think some sunlight might be really hitting it really hard. If you don't like that such harsh yellow, you can tone the yellow down a little bit. Maybe use a little white with your yellow, or maybe make it a little more green. That's all I'm doing. I'm just throwing some nice bright colors in there. Just because.
And as Cheryl was saying, don't feel like you have to finish this, tonight. If you need to get dinner and you want to take a break and come back to it, everything's a work in progress, right?
It is. And he didn't finish this in an hour and a half. And he was using oil paint, which went on a lot smoother. So acrylic paint, that's why you keep doing layers and layers. So what I would also suggest, if you're getting frustrated with yourself and you're not sure if you like it, stand 5 feet away from it, because these paintings were not meant to be viewed this close, okay? Only the artist sees them that close. Because of the dots, 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 stand away from it. You'll get a totally different perspective on your painting, okay? Yes. I promise. I mean, even if you look at Monet's paintings, if you get really close, it's like you're looking at it cross-eyed. You have to stand back to really fully appreciate.